They say that we start at 80% water, steadily decreasing with age. In the early days, our first moments with water are like ushers, joyous like the backyard tarp slide, terrifying like the cellar under a first tornado, first nightmares with sharks, getting lost in a theme park, or learning how to ski, fishing on a rowboat with grandma, or decorating your pants with your pee. Or even a hard lesson learned from mom's humiliating glass of water splashed to the face for misbehaving. I'd sit in my soppy 90s turtleneck, trying to hide under the collar in shame, pouting at the mess with only myself to blame. Yes, the saturated moments usher us to move. Story of waves. I was snorkeling with a friend. It was windy, and snorkeling keeps you suspended at the surface. I'd never been seasick, until I saw her barf. We took turns, again and again, waves of laughter and waves of barf. 70%. Story of geysers. I fumed at my grandpa and his neglect as I cleaned up his old house. Water heater from the 50s, still lingering in a musty basement, dripping emotional residue in the form of dark goop. I sawed off the crusty old pipes, one by one. Reached the last pipe, which was the main line. And the lesson hit like a pressurized shower, 90 pounds of embarrassment, and a bill from the plumber. 68%. Story of calm seas. I'm convinced that beaches are magical. Whatever it is, I've heard folks speaking in some sort of tongues, seen dolphins splashing, sunsets, and the mere thought of green flashing on the horizon, and the most magical kiss I've felt. Maybe it's the waves, the sound, or maybe it just comes down to being vulnerable. 65%. Story of rapids. As a canoe guide, it was my job to lead 3 families in one 30-foot canoe down the Mississippi. Despite the brief paddle lesson, it was really more like co-splashing. When the barges steamed by at the worst possible time, the wake amplified in a ricochet between the concrete barrier of the bridge and the hull. The current picking up in the channel, my arms ached and heaved, the boat gulped water, and the only reason we didn't capsize is that we move in the moments when we need to paddle. Like the sperm in the egg, struggle creates birth. Some learn to paddle, some to surf, but some hold it. Craving a shoreline view, yet complaining about soggy yards. Too much, not enough. Fill it, channel it, contain it safely in songs about teapots. Theme it, hazard to golf balls, taking selfies in front of the waterfall. We want to feel it, but not get splashed. Swim, but not too deep, 'cause there could be big fish down there, admiring your feet. 55%. The story of rain. The way that I keep an umbrella in the back of my car is the same way that I date. A security screen, conveniently shielding precipitation because it hurts when it rains. Or at least it did once. It's not like the childhood tarp slide or a day at the water park. No, raindrops are the moment after washing the dishes, hands still wet, reaching up to put away the plate, and a cold drip slides down that awkward part of your arm, under your sleeve. When you finally open up your heart and they leave. When a father attends his son's funeral, that's parking lot was the local skate spot. Years ago he stuck the landing down that same staircase from which we entered into a tearful atrium. That freedom couldn't comprehend an overdose until it came from a shot. Sometimes it hurts when it rains. We blame the drops, but they're only the ushers. Movement washing the layers of a crusty surface as we wallow, stagnant in our lessons like a 90s kid in a soppy turtleneck until we surrender. With no more layers, diluting our burdens, to shift and saturate as we become water, becoming oceans, becoming every tear-jerking moment like brothers trout fishing in Montana, like blubbering, heaving, deep shifting amoebas of water and salt that stir by the force of tides and tears, drinking and releasing, we can never halt. We're aquifers that store our first moments deep in our pores, then our life's work is building enough pressure to burst them through to the surface, making ripples in consciousness. We're water cycles, each with our very own textbook diagram with page numbers, hiding at the bottom of two puddles with pupils that are also portals. We're tide pools, filled with starfish that calcify a shell to guard against being squishy. We're marshes that blunder, icebergs that groan, steam evaporating upon the stove. We're all these things. But we're also springs. Cool headwater streams that greet the spiny, ancient sturgeons after they've ascended from the deep to spawn in a story involving millions of years of swimming, teaching us that in the struggle of birth it helps to splash, and that waves are within us, cradling our bony parabola, stretching skyward as if creation is the ocean's way of waving to the cosmos, thanking the comets that so kindly deliver dihydrogen monoxide for a groggy morning when we can rise and rinse our crust over a sink to finally choose wisely between an umbrella and the nude. Usher truth like rain and dance like vapor does with a dash of light, painting chakras in the swell and move. Like water, like hallowed beakers that hold moments just long enough to saturate stories before we drain.